close your eyes and drift back to a time when the ocean ruled men and hunger ruled the ocean. Tonight we sail with the pirates, not the legends from storybooks, but the real ones who fought storms, starvation, and the endless sea. This is not a tale of gold or glory, but of survival, told through the food that kept desperate men alive. Let the rhythm of the waves carry you as we explore their world, one brutal meal at a time. Settle in, breathe slow. Your sleep story begins now. It's dawn in the Caribbean, 1717. The sea is calm, but the stench aboard a pirate sloop could turn your stomach before breakfast. The deck creaks, the sails hang heavy with salt, and below, beneath the planks slick with tar and sweat, lies the true world of piracy. No gold, no glamour, just survival. Forget Hollywood's shining ships and endless rum. Real pirate life was disease, filth and hunger. Their ships weren't floating fortresses. They were floating prisons, packed with men, vermin and rotting food. The smell hit first. Salt, sweat, human waste and spoiled meat fermented into one choking air. Down below, barrels of pork, biscuit and dried peas sat stacked against the hull. Each time the ship tilted, seawater seeped through the wood, soaking everything with brine and decay. That was the pirate pantry. Their food came from the British Royal Navy, stolen or scavenged from captured vessels. It wasn't fit for soldiers, and it was worse for pirates. Barrels of salted pork arrived crawling with worms, biscuits hard as stone and alive with weevils, dried peas fused into green bricks. The men didn't complain. They couldn't. Hunger doesn't negotiate. A standard ration? 1 pound of biscuit, 1 pound of salted meat, 1 pint of water if you were lucky. The biscuit was so hard you had to slam it against the deck just to break it. The meat, cured in thick salt, burned your mouth and turned your tongue raw. Every bite was pain, but pain meant life. The barrels were never safe. Worms, roaches and rats ruled the lower deck. The rats weren't pests, they were competitors. They chewed through sacks of flour, nibbled dried peas and gnawed meat straight from the cask. Sometimes they bit sleeping men too. It was common for a sailor to wake up bleeding. The pirates fought back with knives, traps or bare hands. They lost more often than they won. Fresh food lasted maybe 2 weeks. After that, everything turned bad. The heat made meat rot. Biscuits moulded in damp. Peas sprouted in their sacks. The water barrels, if not sealed right, filled with green slime. Some pirates strained it through a dirty rag and called it clean. Others flavoured it with rum, pretending it was fresh. It never was. They lived in a world where everything decayed. Wood, flesh, mind. The sea consumed all things. Even the men who sailed it. Below deck, the temperature climbed above 90 degrees. Sweat dripped onto the food stores, thickening the rot. Worms wriggled through meat, and maggots swelled inside biscuit. Yet the pirates ate it, because there was no other choice. Better worms than hunger, one sailor muttered, and the others agreed. It wasn't just food, it was power. The captain controlled the rations, decided who starved and who ate. Food kept discipline better than fear. Disobedience meant empty bowls. Starvation meant obedience. Every meal was a reminder of what piracy truly was. Not freedom, but endurance. They sailed under black flags, yes, but the real battle wasn't against kings or empires. It was against the sea, the rot, the thirst. At night, men chewed on biscuits soft with damp, listening to the scratching of rats in the dark. The horizon was endless, but their world was only as wide as a rotting plank. And when the food ran out, when the salt meat turned white with fungus and the barrels ran dry, they didn't hunt for treasure. They hunted for another ship to steal food from. Because for the pirates of the Caribbean, the real gold wasn't in Spanish galleons or silver coins. It was in the next meal, if they lived long enough to eat it. Hunger doesn't wait at sea. It doesn't care about storms or battle wounds or enemy flags on the horizon. Hunger arrives every day, at sunrise, like a ritual, and pirates answered it with the same miserable meal again and again. 1 pound of hardtack, 1 pound of salted pork. That was the pirate ration. No sauce, no spices, no fire-roasted feast beneath a golden sunset. Just survival in 2 brutal forms. Bread that could break your teeth, and meat so salty it could dry out your soul. Hardtack. The name sounds harmless, innocent even, but pirates had another name for it, molar breakers. It was a square of flour and water baked until it was tougher than oak. Fresh hardtack was a struggle. Old hardtack, that was a weapon. Men used knives, gun handles, even the heels of pistols to break it into pieces small enough to chew without cracking a tooth. Some soaked it in seawater to soften it. Others dunked it into rum. A few smashed it with cannonballs. Whatever it took. But hardness wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the weevils. Every sailor knew the sound of tapping biscuit. You didn't knock to test freshness. There was none. You tapped to shake out the flower beetles living inside. Hold a biscuit to your ear, and you could hear them crawling. Pirates joked, if it doesn't move, it's not fresh. Some men flicked the bugs away before eating. Others didn't bother. Extra protein, they called it. But if hardtack was misery, salted pork was torture. The meat came from barrels, reused barrels from slave ships, still stained with congealed blood. Historical records confirm it. The pork floated inside a brine so thick with salt, mold and slime that it formed a crust. The smell was like death sealed in wood. Before eating, pirates had to scrape off layers of rot, mold and sometimes worms. And then came the first bite. Imagine biting into wood soaked in seawater for weeks. Imagine meat so salty it scorched your tongue, shriveled your lips and made your gums bleed. That was salted pork. Sailors boiled it again and again just to wash out enough brine to survive eating it. Some rinsed it directly in the ocean, tying slabs of meat to ropes and dragging them behind the ship to soak. Others washed it with stale beer or rum, anything to kill the taste. Sometimes the barrels went bad. When that happened, the meat turned black. Men still ate it, because the alternative was starvation. Fresh food was a distant dream. Vegetables lasted days, bread a week, fruit a memory. So pirates learned to tolerate decay. They trimmed off rot, cut out worms, held their breath, chewed, swallowed, continued living. But food affected more than bodies. It shaped behavior. Men grew short-tempered, violent over crumbs, distrustful of one another. Salted pork and hardtack didn't just wear down their teeth, they wore down their minds. Scurvy came next. Rotting gums, loose teeth, bleeding skin, the body collapsing from inside. Still, every day the same meal was handed out. Slabs of misery, blocks of pain. This wasn't adventure. This wasn't freedom. This was punishment disguised as food, and pirates ate it willingly because they had no choice. But things could always get worse. And they did. Because soon the food didn't just come with rotten bugs. It came alive. In the next chapter, the enemy doesn't sail under a flag. It crawls from inside the food itself. Rot. It was everywhere. Inside the ship. Inside the barrels. Inside the men. Pirates learned quickly that death didn't always come with a sword. Sometimes it came on a plate. Historical ship logs from the early 1700s describe a horror that fresh recruits could never imagine. Maggots crawling out of meat barrels. Salted pork and beef, already nearly inedible from weeks of soaking in foul brine, would eventually decay and burst alive with pale white larvae. Sailors would crack open a barrel and step back as the meat writhed like something breathing. The smell? A violent assault, rot, sea slime and sickly sweetness from flesh long past death. And still, they ate it. Food wasn't the only thing that rotted at sea. Water did too. Every ship carried barrels of fresh water, sealed and rationed. But weeks under tropical heat turned those barrels into swamps. The water thickened. It grew green with algae, crawling with slime. Mosquito eggs hatched inside. Worms swam in it. When pirates lifted a ladle, strands of green hung from it like seaweed. Men didn't just fight hunger. They fought their own disgust. There was no choice. Once a ship left port, survival meant submitting to the barrel. So pirates did what they had to do. They boiled spoiled meat to kill the worms. The cauldron would bubble with cloudy fat as maggots floated to the surface. They scooped them out with spoons. The smell of boiling death clung to their clothes, their beards, their skin. No one forgot it. Some gagged until they vomited. Others shut down their minds and swallowed quickly. But they drank. Because thirst is 1,000 times worse than hunger. Some pirates tried to catch rain in their shirts, holding out cloth to the sky like beggars. On the worst voyages, rain never came. Lips cracked, skin peeled, urine turned dark, then stopped. Thirst made men cruel, suspicious and mad. Water discipline wasn't just strict, it was brutal. Dehydration was used as control. Historical accounts from sailors and pirates alike confirm that captains rationed water to maintain order. Misbehave, lose your water share, insult the quartermaster, drink last, if anything was left. A man could go 3 days without water. After that, he didn't argue anymore. There are real documented accounts of pirate crews reduced to skeletons, crawling across the deck too weak to stand. Their hair fell out, teeth dropped from their mouths, legs swelled from lack of nutrition. They coughed blood, internal organs began shutting down. Disease moved in, scurvy, dysentery, typhus. Then starvation arrived, the final assassin. When storms destroyed sails and currents trapped a ship at sea, supplies ran out. Pirates scavenged everything edible. They trapped and ate rats, frying them whole over tiny fires. They broke open casks, searching for crumbs in the cracks. They captured seagulls and drank their blood for strength. Some gnawed on leather belts soaked in seawater. Others chewed wood shavings from the mast to trick their bodies into thinking they'd eaten. Every sunrise brought death. A silent body thrown overboard. No coffin, no prayer, just a splash. Pirate life wasn't treasure maps and tropical islands. It was rot, worms, thirst, hunger, a slow war against decay. And on some ships the crew barely survived long enough to fear enemy cannons. Scurvy was coming, and it would consume them from the inside. A disease that turned strong men into walking corpses, because there was something worse than rot and hunger at sea. Something silent, invisible. If hardtack was misery, and salted meat was punishment, then rum was salvation at sea. It didn't matter if you were a deckhand, gunner, cook, or captain. Rum kept you alive, not because it was a luxury, not because it tasted good, but because on a pirate ship, rum replaced hope. It also replaced water. Fresh water turned poisonous fast. Stored in wooden barrels, it grew slimy and green, thick with algae and crawling film. Men gagged at the smell alone, but rum didn't rot. Rum didn't spoil. Rum didn't turn into a swamp inside a barrel. Rum was liquid survival. The British Royal Navy diluted rum into grog to keep men from going mad. 1 part rum, 4 parts water, maybe a squeeze of lime if a ship's doctor was kind. Pirates heard that and laughed. Pirates didn't water down rum. They watered down life with rum. They drank it raw, straight from the cask. No rationing, no ceremony. Rum was poured by the fistful. But rum was more than a drink. It was currency. On pirate ships, rum bought loyalty, silence, forgiveness, and food. A man could trade a tin cup of rum for a bigger slab of salted pork, a softer piece of biscuit, an extra scoop of peas. It bought weapons too. Knife for a cup, pistol for a bottle. Hatred dissolved in rum, so did fear. Disputes were settled by fists, but alliances were sealed with rum. Pirates kept rum in barrels deep below deck, guarded as closely as gunpowder. When rations ran low, desperation turned dangerous. History records mutinies over leadership, spoils, and revenge, but some of the bloodiest pirate mutinies in the Caribbean, they were over rum. A captain who ran low on rum was a dead man floating. Blackbeard understood this better than anyone. Edward Teach, the most feared pirate of the Atlantic, didn't use rum just for drinking. He used it as psychological warfare. Before battle, he soaked slow-burning fuses in rum and tucked them under his hat, lighting them so smoke spilled from his beard like a demon rising from hell. He mixed rum with black gunpowder and drank it before boarding enemy ships, his eyes burning red, wild, unafraid. He didn't just terrify enemies, he terrified his own men into loyalty. Rum was madness, and madness meant power. But the drink carried a darker cost. Rum dulled pain, but also dulled reason. It fueled courage, but also fights, stabbings, broken treaties. Drunken men fell from rigging. They slipped overboard in storms and vanished into black water. They forgot guard duty. They smashed compasses. They cursed the wind. Rum took as much as it gave. And then came the slow killer. Scurvy. Alcohol stole nutrients from the body, accelerating decay. Pirate diets already lacked fruit and vegetables. Rum made everything worse. Gums swelled and bled. Teeth loosened and fell. Legs ballooned. Old wounds split open and refused to heal. Skin turned yellow and cracked. Joints screamed in pain. Worst of all, rum hid the symptoms. A drunk sailor didn't feel illness. He couldn't. So he kept drinking and kept dying. By the time he realized he was sick, it was already too late. Rum kept pirates warm in storms, fearless in battle, and numb to misery. But it also hollowed them out. It replaced water, hope, and sanity, until nothing remained but empty barrels and empty men. Rum was never a drink. It was a weapon, and the pirates used it on themselves. Death has many faces at sea: storms, enemy cannons, hunger, betrayal. But the most feared killer aboard a pirate ship was invisible. It hunted slowly, silently. It didn't spill blood. It rotted men from the inside. Its name was scurvy. Every pirate knew the signs. First came the fatigue, heavy limbs, muscles trembling even while standing still. Then the gums swelled, soft, spongy, purple gums that bled when touched. Teeth loosened, breath turned foul, sour and metallic. Old scars reopened as if time itself reversed, skin spotted and tore, legs swelled like barrels, wounds refused to heal. And then came the pain. A pain that crawled under the skin and lived in the bones. Scurvy didn't care if a man was brave. It didn't care if he survived Spanish bullets or Royal Navy prisons. No fruit, no vegetables, no vitamin C, no chance. And pirates didn't have orchards or farms at sea, only barrels of meat, bread, and rum. Historians say scurvy killed more sailors than all naval battles in history combined. Pirates knew it. They feared it. They whispered about it at night like a curse. Their bodies broke before their spirits did, and then the madness began. Disease never came alone. It travelled with friends. Dysentery, typhus, cholera, infected wounds. Bad food meant infection. Spoiled meat carried bacteria. Worms from biscuit carried parasites. Dirty water caused bloated intestines and explosive vomiting. Ships had one toilet, a rope hanging off the side. In storms, men too weak to hold on were washed away forever. Below deck became a hospital of horror. The smell of rot, human and otherwise, was constant. But the body always wants to survive, even when the soul gives up. And so, men did things to stay alive. Things no one speaks about in heroic stories. When food ran out, they boiled leather belts and boots, scraping softened hide into strips and chewing just to keep their jaws moving. They melted candle tallow, wax made from animal fat, and swallowed spoonfuls of it for calories. Some trapped rats and ate them raw. Others caught seabirds, cracking their bones and drinking the blood for strength. It was warm, salty, and thick. The strongest survival secret came from the Caribbean sea turtles. Their blood and liver kept men alive. Pirates hunted them desperately, flipping them on their backs to store aboard like living barrels of meat. But when the turtles were gone, the hunger returned. Injury became fatal. Without vitamins and protein, wounds turned black. The flesh around cuts swelled and split. Gangrene, the death of living tissue, spread across arms and legs like ink. The stench of rotting flesh filled the lower deck. Then came the moment everyone feared. The surgeon was called. A ship's surgeon wasn't always a trained man. Many were barbers, butchers, carpenters, anyone who knew how to use a sharp tool. They didn't heal. They removed rope for straps, iron for the saw, and rum, not for disinfecting, but for drinking, to make a man numb enough not to scream. Amputations were done on a blood-slick table beneath flickering lanterns. No anesthesia, no mercy. Men bit down on bits of wood while the saw cut through skin, muscle, and finally bone. Then came the hot iron. Cauterization. The smell of burning human flesh mixed with salt air. That was pirate medicine. Scurvy didn't just kill pirates. It devoured them, slowly, inch by inch, chewing through their bodies like a beast that could never be seen, only felt. But even disease couldn't stop the hunger. And soon, hunger would drive pirates to their most desperate act of all. They would rather face cannons and death than starve one day more. Pirates weren't starving drifters lost at sea. They were predators. Organized, relentless, savage when they had to be. And nothing revealed this truth more than the one thing they hunted above all: food. Forget gold for a moment. Forget silver. Forget Spanish treasure fleets and chests overflowing with jewels. Those were luxuries. But food meant life, and every pirate knew that a starving crew would mutiny faster than any navy could sink them. That's why real pirate raids often targeted supply ships, not treasure galleons. Merchant ships carrying flour, pork, dried beans, and fresh barrels of water were worth more than royal fleets glittering with coins. You can't eat gold, you can't drink silver. Pirates learned quickly: hunt treasure, and you live rich. Hunt food, and you live at all. And when they didn't get enough food, they turned on each other. The pirate Bartholomew Roberts, Black Bart, the most successful pirate captain in history, once ruled more than 400 captured ships, but even he wasn't safe from hunger. In 1721, His crew grew furious after discovering barrels of rotten meat aboard their ship. Men shouted, rum flowed, knives came out, and then a mutiny ignited over spoiled pork. Roberts survived, but barely. The message was clear. A captain who cannot feed his crew is not a captain for long. This wasn't rare. Pirate codes. Yes, pirates had laws, guaranteed equal food shares. Why? Because food was power. Food kept order. Food kept men loyal. A captain who hoarded food for himself was a dead man. Henry Morgan understood this too. History remembers him for burning Panama, but most people don't know why he marched across Central America with 1,400 starving buccaneers. He wasn't just after riches, he wanted food. His men raided villages for flour, corn, cattle, and salt. Morgan's army roasted stolen oxen in campfires while gunpowder smoke filled the sky. When historians ask how Morgan kept his men loyal in hellish conditions, the answer is simple: he fed them. The great pirate havens were built on this logic. Tortuga, Nassau, Port Royal. They weren't treasure islands. They were food kingdoms. Pirates traded spices, rum, salt, and meat. They stole livestock from Caribbean plantations and raised pigs in jungle camps. They raided fruit orchards. They bought bananas, coconuts, and cassava from smugglers. In Nassau, Bahamian women fed entire pirate fleets food for silver, bread for bullets, fruit for survival. Because out there, in lawless waters, food was the only real currency. But the sea always demanded more. Storms destroyed supplies. Rats chewed through stores. Salt meat rotted in heat. When food ran out, pirates had one last option: hunt or die. They became wolves of the sea, moving fast, striking faster. They would ambush merchant convoys, swarming like vultures. Before grabbing treasure, before checking guns, they rushed the cargo hold and tore open barrels. Bread, meat, beans, rum. Real power didn't shine. It smelled of salt and sweat. Pirates deserted captains who chased riches but failed to feed their men. The sea didn't care about honor or glory, only survival. Every storm, every raid, every mutiny. It always came back to food. In the end, pirate life wasn't ruled by kings, maps, or treasure. It was ruled by hunger. And on the open sea, food wasn't a meal. Food was the law.